Hey everyone, it's Steve from stevezanella.com. How are you today? I'm doing well. I wanted to do a quick video talking about the difference between an anxiety attack and a panic attack. You hear these terms thrown around a little bit, actually quite a bit. What's the difference? Well, I want to share my thoughts, but first, real quick, do me a favor. If you're checking this out on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I would love it if I knew you were out there and I knew that you were getting something out of these videos. It would definitely help me out a lot. And if you get some value out of this, please click the like button. That would be awesome as well. So, anxiety attack versus panic attack. I've suffered with both of them. So, speaking from personal experience, the best and easiest way to think about the difference between the two of them is this. An anxiety attack has more to do with the fear and the worry building up to a point where you're suffering from physical symptoms of the fear, of the anxiety, but it's also mixed in with the worry, with that sort of negative what-if thinking that collects in your head that really builds and builds and builds until you start sweating, or your palms get real sweaty, or you get very uncomfortable, you have a hard time focusing, and it really becomes disruptive. A panic attack, that's a little bit more on the biological side. The anxiety is as well, because the negativity is kicking in that fight or flight. The difference, though, is a panic attack is a lot more of the physical symptoms, and oftentimes they can appear out of nowhere. You don't necessarily you're not consciously aware of the negative or worrisome thoughts that you're having, but you get into a situation and your body is kind of on autopilot, and you start experiencing this feeling of panic seemingly out of nowhere, and your body literally sort of kicks into overdrive all on its own, and the feelings are heightened. This is usually why people end up in the hospital with panic attacks, because they don't necessarily know what's going on. It's one thing when you start to feel anxious or worried about something and you start to sweat because, if you're going to speak in public, anxiety is a normal response. And it's normal to feel a little panicky over something that you're about to do. But an anxiety attack is a much greater experience than just being worried or anxious. And a panic attack is that multiplied. And like I said, the panic attack can feel like it's coming out of nowhere. And a lot of times when people experience panic attacks, they have no idea that's what it is. They think they're having a heart attack. A lot of people that I talk to, they get symptoms very much like vertigo, where they get dizzy, they have a hard time focusing, they feel like they're physically going to pass out, they're having a hard time breathing. That is a real panic attack, because part of the panic is, I don't know what's wrong with me, what's going on. Whereas with an anxiety attack, you can pretty much tell that you're feeling the anxiety and the physical symptoms are starting to manifest from the thought. So that's kind of what I've experienced as the difference between an anxiety attack and a panic attack. Now, when you suffer from a disorder like GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, what ends up happening is it becomes a progressive illness. And what I mean by that is the longer you have it and the longer you experience the repetition of negative thinking, the more you train your brain to think in that manner, and the more efficient your brain becomes at doing so. So the negative thoughts get bigger, they come on faster, they're harder to recognize as negative thoughts, they become a lot more generalized, or they become heightened over situations that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily feel that much anxiety over. And in some ways, and in some cases, the anxiety it builds to such a point where you don't even know what you're anxious about. For me, I woke up in the morning and I felt like I had a big test, or there was some big talk or some big event that was coming up, but there was nothing. I was just anxious all the time. And the problem with that is you never go past what it is that's making you anxious. If you're worried about a test, or you're worried because you have to speak in front of people, eventually you get to that moment, you go through it, and then the event ends, the test is over, and you have that break where you can sort of exhale and it's behind you. With anxiety, because it's in many cases, especially with generalized anxiety, there's no test to take, there's no speaking engagement, there's no talk to give. It never goes away, and it builds up and builds up. And what ends up happening is it gets so bad that it develops into panic attacks, where you can experience the physical sensations and you aren't necessarily connecting the anxiety or the worry to the physical sensations. You think you're having a heart attack because you're having a hard time breathing and your chest is tightening and you're getting dizzy. Or you have symptoms where you're physically dizzy and disoriented and you feel like you're going to pass out. And then that leads to people not wanting to go out in public, not wanting to drive cars. And it's progressive and it builds over time. And you can also have panic attacks, not necessarily associated only with anxiety, but for people who suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. What ends up happening is the stress that they experienced, things will act as triggers that create a panic response, because there's something about a situation or a sound or a smell or a memory that comes up that puts the brain back in that place that was very traumatic and difficult. And the body responds the way the body is designed to respond. Our bodies are built to keep us alive and to keep us safe. And when you suffer from these types of disorders, the signals get crossed, and the body doesn't know how to interpret the information that's coming in from the response it's supposed to put out. All right, that's it for me. If you have any questions, shoot me an email, steve@stevezanella.com. I love hearing from you. And until we talk again, hope you have a great day.